Hey Critical, this is your video for your Chapter 9 vocabulary. So we are in Week 7, particularly Chapter 9. If you go to the fill in, Chapter 8 is there, even though we did talk about these words in in Week 6. I've copied this vocabulary study guide over in case you did not get a chance to last week because we did not have the quiz. The quiz is this week, so it's there for you. So we are going to talk about Chapter 9 in this video. So there's the Chapter 9 study guide. And as always, it'll pull up your blank guide, and then I'm going to use my guide to walk you through these words. So these words come from 3 places: Selection 1, Selection 2, and the Vocabulary Booster. So depending on, again, what order you're watching this video, I would have already talked a little bit about your selection number 1 because you do have questions on your text and skill sheet relating to selection number 1. So you may have already gone through that selection. If not, then you're going to go through it here, and then you'll see it again on your text and skill sheet. So let's talk about this first set of words here. So from hindsight down to this phrase right here, these are all coming from our first selection. So in our textbook, we're in Chapter 9, Selection number 1, and this is on money management, particularly managing money in college. So it's kind of an interesting piece, depending on, obviously all of you are in college, so it just kind of depends also where you are in your other facets of your life. But I think anytime you can get some money management tips is always helpful. So this is the selection that you'll read, that this first set of words will come from, and that you'll have to read for your text and skill sheet to answer questions off of. So keep that in mind. You're doing double duty with selection 1 this chapter. All right, so hindsight, reflecting or looking back on. So let's say, you're out of high school, you could be like, in hindsight, I wish that I would have done more extracurriculars, or, you're able to look back on. It's something that's already happened. And so you're able to reflect. It's like, oh, if I had, that 20/20 vision, looking back on something, that is hindsight. Superficially means on the surface level, not very deep. Like if you have a superficial cut, for instance, that's literally just on the surface. It's not going to require a lot of medical intervention. So something that is superficial is just very surface level. Someone who cares about superficial things might only care about outward appearances, not very deep. Apprentice is someone who is training for a position in a field. They're not in the field yet, they're not maybe certified or licensed, but they're getting there. They're maybe job shadowing, they're doing internships and work like that. An apprentice. So if you're going for a electrical or carpentry or whatever that might look like, someone who's training for a position. Resume, hopefully you all are familiar with. You have one of these, or you're thinking about one of these. It's just really how you sell yourself on paper, right? Your listing of your qualifications and your education and your experiences and all the things you can do and who can attest to that. So that's your resume. Minimize is to lessen or keep small. So if you want to minimize your debt, you want to keep it small. You want to minimize stress, you want to lessen your stress. And then you may or may not have heard this phrase before. Grabbing them by the horns, or grabbing the bull by the horns, is when you take charge. So if you grab the bull by the horns, you are the one in charge, taking on a situation head on. So you kind of step up and deal with the situation in a leadership type position. All right, the next set of words from derail down to aerobic, these come from selection 2. So this is not part of your text and skill sheet, so you will not see this in the Chapter 9 assignment video. So for the purposes of our vocabulary, you'll just want to go through, and this is about building healthy habits, particularly getting fit. And so it's going to walk you through these different steps and things you can do and how to goal set and track and all of that. That's where these words are coming from here. So derail is to get in the way of progress. So let's say, since it's an article about getting fit, I can speak to personal experience, the holidays kind of derail my fitness goals, right? They get in the way of that because I want to eat and I want to indulge during that time of year. Cardiorespiratory, so medical people, hopefully you're seeing a lot of those word parts here. Cardio, we know, has to do with your heart. Respiratory, deal with breathing. And so it's that working together of dealing with your heart and breathing. Intrinsic, extrinsic, these are often talked about together. Intrinsic are things that are internal, just essential to who you are. So maybe you're going to college for, intrinsic reasons. Sorry. You're going to college for intrinsic reasons, meaning self-satisfaction, a sense of self-worth, a pride, things that are internal to you, versus extrinsic, things that are outside of you. Maybe you also have extrinsic goals, such as you want a better job, you want to make better money. One is not necessarily better than the other, but there is a lot of research that says if you are motivated more by intrinsic goals, you're more likely to succeed versus just those extrinsic things. But both of those together often provide the best source of motivation. So intrinsic, internal, extrinsic, those that are outside of yourself. Circumference, math, perimeter of a round object. So, thinking back for some of you last year or a few more years than that, talking about circumference, it's the perimeter of a round object. Cardiovascular, now here we're going to have that cardio again, dealing with the heart and blood vessels. So cardiovascular, heart and blood vessels. Components are just the parts and pieces of something. So if you have a lot of components, you have a lot of pieces, you have a lot of things that are working together. Adherence is strict or faithful to, very reminiscent of our word adhering from not that long ago. So adherence is how much are you sticking to something? Are you sticking to the plan? Are you adhering to it? And aerobic we have is activity, like aerobic exercise, activity that increases the need for oxygen. It allows you to kind of increase your breathing and your heart rate, all of those different things, aerobic exercise. All right, and then the last set of words come from our vocabulary booster. So you would click right here, and you can see they're going to be, very word for word written out here. We have regress, which means to go back. So sometimes you hear this, like if a family has a young toddler who's going through potty training and then a new baby comes along and the toddler all of a sudden regresses, goes to an earlier state, like forgets everything they learned and they revert back. Rejuvenate is like to feel young again, like to feel youthful again. So maybe you go to a spa and it just kind of rejuvenates you. It kind of just fills you with like you're refreshed. Revenge is to kind of seek pain or harm in retaliation, like someone hurts you, so you want to seek revenge on them. Illusion is unreal or misleading, so it could literally be like a magician is performing an illusion, or it could be someone is just behaving or acting in a way that is very misleading. And then ludicrous, if you're around my age, you think luda, but ludicrous is ridiculous, like that's just crazy, that's, kind of just not sane or not usual, ridiculous. All right, those are your chapter 9 vocabulary words. Make sure you have, if you haven't already, checked out the chapter 9 assignment video where I will talk about the chapter 9 vocabulary quiz. Bye.